Think about it for a second. From the way you do your banking, to how our hospitals run, to even how national defense is managed, almost everything today depends on incredibly complex digital systems, which, begs a really important question. How do we know any of it is actually working the way it's supposed to? Let's get into it.
It's really not an exaggeration to say that we run our entire world on code. I mean, the source material we're looking at makes it crystal clear. Organizations would find it pretty much impossible to do their jobs without these systems. Our whole society is built on this invisible foundation of automated processes and digital data. And that right there is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? When we put so much trust into these systems, who's the one double-checking the work? Who's making sure that the code that literally runs our lives is secure, reliable, and, actually doing what it's supposed to be doing? To really get why this matters so much, we first have to appreciate just how high the stakes are. We need to look at what happens when these digital systems are left unchecked and things go wrong. And what's so powerful about this is how personal these risks are. This isn't just some abstract problem for big corporations. We're talking about your social security number getting exposed. We're talking about money being stolen right out of accounts. Critical stuff like national defense or emergency services could literally grind to a halt. And at the end of the day, the trust we all have in our institutions, it can just be completely shattered. Okay, so knowing all that, how do we protect ourselves from this kind of chaos? Well, thankfully, there's a formal process for that. It's like a digital safety check that's happening all the time right behind the scenes. All right, first things first, let's get our terms straight. When we say an information system, we're not just talking about one piece of software. It's the whole shebang, the computers, the programs, the databases, even the people and the rules that make it all work together to manage data. And this is the hero of our story today, the Information Systems Audit, or IS Audit. You can just think of it as a top-to-bottom examination of all the checks and balances inside a company's tech world. It's basically a really thorough health check for their entire digital nervous system. Now, auditors don't just go in and start poking around randomly. Nope. They break this health check down into two main categories. And to make it easy to understand, let's think of it like a home inspection. First, you check the building's foundation, the wiring, the main security system, the big stuff that affects the entire house. Then, you go in and start testing the individual kitchen appliances to make sure the toaster toasts and the fridge stays cold. So let's start with that foundation. In the audit world, these are called IT general controls, and they are absolutely 100% crucial. And here's the key takeaway. These controls are the big picture policies and procedures that apply to all the systems everywhere. Think about it. If your house's foundation is cracked, it really doesn't matter how fancy your new microwave is, right? The whole building is at risk. It's the same idea here. So, what do auditors look for in this foundation? Well, first up is security management. This is the big picture game plan, the overall strategy for managing risk and protecting information. Next, they check access controls. This is all about making sure only the right people have the keys to the right doors. It's about who can get in and what they're allowed to do once they're there. Then there's configuration management. This sounds technical, but it's really just about preventing chaos. It makes sure that any change to the system, big or small, is approved, tested, and tracked, so nothing breaks by accident. Area 4 is segregation of duties. This is a classic move to prevent fraud. You simply make sure that no single person has total control over a sensitive process from beginning to end. And finally, contingency planning. This is the what-if plan. What happens if there's a fire, a flood, or a major cyber attack? This is the disaster recovery playbook. Okay, so once we know the foundation of the house is solid, it's time to move on and start testing the tools inside. These are called the application controls. So unlike those big, overarching, general controls, application controls are built right into specific software to handle specific jobs. We're talking about the program that processes payroll, or the one that manages inventory, or, as we're about to see, a system that handles all the company's purchasing. Let's make this super concrete. Here's a simplified purchasing process, taken right from our source material. An employee needs to buy something, so they put in a request. That request gets approved. A formal purchase order is created, which then also gets approved. And finally, the items show up at the loading dock. This entire sequence of events is a business process that's handled by a specific application. So, An auditor will come in and test this specific application to make sure it's doing its job right. They'll ask, is the process complete? Meaning, are we sure no orders get lost and none are accidentally paid for twice? Is it accurate? Are all the dollar amounts and item numbers correct? And is it valid? Was this a real purchase for a real reason that was properly authorized?
And this right here, this quote just illustrates it perfectly. This is a beautiful example of an automated application control in action. The system itself is programmed to block a payment if the stuff hasn't actually arrived yet or if the bill is way higher than it should be. It's like a digital guardrail that stops mistakes or even fraud before they can happen.
Okay, we've looked at the foundation, we've tested the appliances, but let's bring this all back home. Why should any of this actually matter to you in your everyday life?
Well, every single time you use an ATM, buy something online, or even just trust a hospital with your private medical records, you are betting on the fact that this invisible process is working. IS audits are the quiet, behind-the-scenes reason you can have confidence that your money is safe, your data is private, and all these systems we rely on actually work.
So, at the end of the day, it really just boils down to this. First, think of IS audits as this vital safety net for our digital lives. Second, just remember they work on those two levels. They check the foundation with general controls, and then they test the tools with application controls. And finally, this whole process is absolutely essential for protecting your data, your money, and the critical services we all depend on.
Which kind of leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. We talk all the time about how important trust is in our digital world. But maybe, just maybe, what we really mean when we say we trust a system is that we trust it has been and will continue to be thoroughly and properly audited.